My name is Vanessa Carter, and I'm 31 years old. I live in Seattle, Washington, and I work as a senior marketing manager at a firm I've been loyal to for almost a decade. From the outside, it might look like I have it all together: steady job, a supportive boyfriend, and a future I built with my own two hands. But the truth is, my life has always carried the shadow of something heavier: family chaos. Growing up, things were simple until they weren't. My parents divorced when I was still in college. After the separation, my dad, Robert, was never quite the same. He began slipping into habits that tore away the father I once knew. Alcohol became his comfort, and with it came reckless decisions, emotional outbursts, and eventually,
Carla.
Carla is my dad's new girlfriend. Or more accurately, the woman who attached herself to him like a leech when he was at his lowest. From the moment I met her, everything about her felt off. She was smooth, too perfect, and always watching, calculating. Every word out of her mouth felt fake. And yet, my dad clung to her like a lifeline, blind to the way she pulled him deeper into his worst habits. Despite all of that, I kept my distance for years, until my younger sister Ava announced her engagement to Jason and asked me to be her maid of honor. "I need you," she said over the phone, her voice trembling with excitement. "You're the only one I trust to keep everything from falling apart." I said yes, of course, because that's what big sisters do. Little did I know, helping Ava plan her dream wedding would drag me straight back into the toxic swirl of our father's world, this time with Carla right in the center of it. I thought I could keep things under control. I thought I could manage the damage like I always had. But I was wrong. I was walking straight into a storm I never saw coming. From the moment I agreed to be Ava's maid of honor, my life turned into a non-stop blur of spreadsheets, Pinterest boards, and flower samples. I wanted everything to be perfect for her because Ava deserved that. She had always been the kind, forgiving one, the glue that tried to hold our broken family together. But even during the happiest planning moments, there was an unspoken fear between us. One afternoon, while we were picking out table arrangements, Ava glanced at me and whispered, "Vanessa, do you think Dad will show up sober?" I paused, not because I didn't know the answer, but because I did. "I hope so," I said gently. "For your sake, I really hope so." Truth was, I had no faith left in Robert. Not when Carla was still around, whispering in his ear and clinging to him like some self-appointed queen of the family. The deeper we got into planning, the more Carla made her presence felt. She started attending cake tastings uninvited, giving opinions like she was footing the bill. One time she even told the florist, "We're going with white roses. They represent purity, unlike some people." Then she looked directly at me and smirked. I didn't react. I had mastered the art of holding my tongue. But my gut told me something was seriously wrong with her. Something more than just being rude or entitled. I needed clarity, so I turned to the one person who had always kept me grounded: Bella, my best friend since high school. We met for coffee at our usual cafe downtown. As I stirred my drink absent-mindedly, Bella leaned forward and said, "All right, spill. What's the deal with Carla? You've mentioned her 3 times in 10 minutes. I sighed. There's something off. The way she inserts herself into everything, the way Dad's behavior changes when she's around. I overheard her on the phone the other night. She said something about a big payout coming soon. It didn't sound normal." Bella narrowed her eyes. "You think she's scamming him?" "I don't know yet," I admitted. "But if she is, I'm going to find out." That night, I went home and pulled out my laptop. I didn't care if it made me look paranoid. I had to protect Ava. I began digging. Social media accounts, old news mentions, reverse phone lookups, anything I could use to get a clearer picture of Carla. And slowly, piece by piece, the picture began to take shape. Something wasn't just off about Carla. She was hiding something, and I intended to expose it before it was too late. The day before the wedding was supposed to be about final touches and laughter, not gut tension and second-guessing every movement. Ava and I arrived early at the venue, a charming lakeside lodge with string lights and soft white linens draping every beam. She looked genuinely happy, checking details off her list with that excited glow only a bride gets. I can't believe it's finally happening, she said, clutching her clipboard like it was sacred. Do you think everything will go smoothly? I forced a smile. It's going to be perfect. You've planned everything beautifully. But inside, my nerves were like frayed wires. I hadn't heard anything from Robert all week. And when I tried calling him, his phone went straight to voicemail. It made me feel sick to my stomach. And then, as if summoned by my worst fear, he showed up. The lodge's front doors swung open, and in walked Robert, arm in arm with Carla. Ava gasped with delight. Daddy. She rushed to hug him, and I stayed frozen in place, watching the scene unfold like a slow-motion nightmare. Robert looked disheveled, his shirt wrinkled, his eyes glassy, and a clumsy smile spread across his face. He reeked of whiskey even from across the room. My little girl, he slurred, trying to pat her hair gently, and almost missing. I stepped forward instinctively, trying to intercept the damage, but Carla was already tightening her grip on his arm. She gave me a tight-lipped smile that didn't reach her eyes. Robert, why don't we go check out the bar area? She purred, like she owned the place. I noticed how her eyes flicked around the lodge, not with admiration, but calculation. Like she was scanning for something. Opportunities, maybe. Ava turned toward me, clearly shaken. Vanessa. I cut her off softly, pulling her into a hug. Don't worry, sis. Tomorrow is about you and Jason. Nothing is going to ruin it. But deep down, I wasn't sure I believed that anymore. Carla's smug glance stayed with me long after she walked away with my father. This wasn't just going to be a difficult wedding. This was going to be a battlefield. And I was done being the passive bystander. The next morning, the venue was buzzing with soft music, rustling gowns, and whispers of excitement. For a little while, everything felt calm, hopeful. Like maybe, just maybe, we'd survive the day without a meltdown. Ava looked breathtaking in her ivory dress, her hair swept back in soft curls, a glow of joy radiating from her. As I buttoned up the last detail on the back of her gown, I saw a flicker of nervousness in her eyes. You ready? I whispered. She nodded, biting her lip. I just hope Dad behaves. I didn't answer right away. I just squeezed her hand. The ceremony began as the sun dipped just low enough to cast a golden glow across the lake. Guests stood, music played, and Ava walked down the aisle with Jason watching her like she was the only thing in the world. For a moment, it felt magical. Robert, miraculously, remained in his seat, slouched and a little too quiet, but not disruptive. Carla sat beside him in a dress that screamed, "Look at me," but thankfully, she kept her mouth shut. Standing beside Ava as she exchanged vows, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Peace. I looked around at the smiling guests, the flickering candles, and the way Jason was holding Ava's hands so gently. Maybe it was going to be okay after all. The vows were heartfelt, the kiss was sweet, and the guests erupted in applause. I clapped with tears in my eyes, feeling proud, not just of my sister, but of how far we'd come. In that fleeting window of time, I believed in the fairy tale ending. But fairy tales, I've learned, are fragile things. As the crowd moved toward the reception hall, I looked over my shoulder and caught a glimpse of Carla. She was no longer smiling. She was watching. And something in my chest tightened like a warning bell. The storm wasn't over. It was just waiting. The reception hall sparkled. Candles flickered along the tables, soft jazz hummed in the background, and guests sipped champagne beneath warm golden lights. For the first 30 minutes, everything went smoothly. I stayed close to Ava, laughing when I could, scanning the room when I couldn't. My eyes kept drifting toward Robert, already hovering near the bar, and Carla, who circled like a hawk. She wasn't drinking, which surprised me. Instead, she watched everything with unnerving intensity. Every time a guest laughed or the DJ switched tracks, her expression shifted, like she was calculating something. Then I saw Robert stumble. I muttered, "Here we go," and made my way over. His tie was loose, his face flushed, and his voice too loud for the mellow ambience. "Dad," I said gently, placing a hand on his arm, "let's get you some fresh air." But Carla appeared before he could answer. She stepped between us, blocking me with her body. "Leave him alone," she snapped. "He's fine. He's drunk," I replied calmly. "And this is Ava's wedding, not a bar crawl." Carla narrowed her eyes. "You just can't stand seeing him happy unless you're in control, huh? You think you're so perfect." "I think my sister deserves a peaceful wedding," I snapped, my voice rising. "Something you clearly don't care about." That's when it happened. In one lightning-quick motion, Carla lunged toward me. She grabbed a fistful of my hair, yanked me back hard, and with her other hand, punched me square in the nose. Pain shot through my face like fire. My head jerked back, and I stumbled into a chair, nearly falling. Gasps echoed around the hall. Glasses shattered. Someone screamed. Everything blurred. Then chaos erupted. Guests scrambled away. Jason rushed to Ava. A few people shouted for help while others pulled out their phones. My nose throbbed, and my eyes watered uncontrollably. I could taste blood. Carla was still screaming, something about me ruining everything, when two male guests tackled her to the ground. Chairs overturned. The DJ cut the music. I was frozen, hand to my face, breathing hard. Within minutes, security arrived and restrained Carla, who was thrashing like a wild animal. Her eyes found me one last time, filled with venom. I didn't speak. I didn't need to, because I knew justice was on its way. The sirens were faint at first, just a distant wail beyond the reception hall's thick wooden doors, but as they grew louder, the entire room fell into a heavy, anxious silence. Carla, still restrained on the floor, was cursing and thrashing as security held her arms. A few guests whispered nervously. Others stared at me, unsure whether to approach or give me space. I stood still, blood on my fingers, chest rising and falling like I had run a marathon. Then the police arrived. Two uniformed officers, Officer Martinez and Officer Grant, entered with steady authority. The crowd instinctively stepped back. One of the officers headed straight for Carla, who began shrieking about being attacked and setting her up. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. A few guests immediately stepped forward, offering to provide statements. One woman handed over her phone with a full recording of the entire scene. Officer Grant asked gently, "Miss, are you okay?" I just need to sit." I managed. Paramedics arrived shortly after and led me to a quiet corner. They cleaned the blood from under my nose and checked for any fractures. "You're lucky," one of them said. "No break, but there's bruising and trauma. You'll be sore for days." Ava ran to my side, her makeup streaked with tears. "Vanessa, oh my God. I'm so sorry. I should have listened. I never should have let her come." I took her hand and squeezed it. "This isn't your fault. She did this. Not you." Across the room, Carla was handcuffed and read her rights. Her hair was wild, her eyes darting between guests like a cornered animal. But there was no escaping now. Not with video, witnesses, and a bruised victim bleeding in front of dozens of people. Robert? He stood near the exit, pale and trembling. He hadn't said a single word, not to me, not to the officers. He just stared blankly as Carla was led past him. She didn't even look back at him. The moment the police car drove away with her in the back seat, a strange hush fell over the hall. The wedding reception was over. The fairy tale had been shattered. But something else had just begun. Justice. The next few days felt like a haze, somewhere between a dream I couldn't wake from and a nightmare I couldn't shake. My face throbbed from the punch, my neck sore where Carla had yanked my hair. But the physical pain wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the voicemails. They started the morning after the wedding. "Vanessa, sweetheart, this is your dad." Robert's voice slurred in my inbox. "We need to talk." Carla was just upset. "Don't blow this out of proportion." Upset? She had assaulted me in front of nearly 100 people. But he wasn't done. Second voicemail. "Look, Pumpkin, I know Carla can be dramatic, but she didn't mean it. She loves me. You have to understand that." I deleted that one before it ended. Third voicemail, later that night. "Vanessa, don't do this to me. Family doesn't turn on each other." That was rich, coming from the man who watched me get attacked and said nothing. I didn't reply to any of them. I didn't owe him anything anymore. 3 days later, he showed up at my apartment without warning. I opened the door to find him swaying slightly in the hallway, reeking of whiskey and desperation. "Vanessa," he said, eyes glassy. "Let's just sit down and talk. We're family. We can fix this." "No," I said firmly, stepping into the doorway to block him from coming inside. "We can't fix what you refuse to admit is broken." He blinked at me, confused. "I didn't attack you. Carla did." "And you let her," I said quietly. "You stood there and did nothing. And now you're defending her?" He opened his mouth to respond, but I didn't let him.
"We're done, Dad."
"This isn't just about Carla. This is about all the years you chose alcohol and women over your daughters. Ava still wants to believe in you, I don't. Not anymore." He looked like he'd been slapped. "You don't mean that." "I do," I whispered. "I have to protect myself now. Just like I protected Ava when you wouldn't." And then, gently but decisively, I closed the door. I leaned against it for a long time afterward, heart racing, tears threatening to spill. But I didn't cry. I felt relief. For the first time in my life, I had drawn a boundary that couldn't be crossed. By the end of the week, I had received over a dozen messages from friends and coworkers, some offering support, others asking in hushed tones, "Was that really your dad's girlfriend on the news?"
Yes, it was.
Carla's arrest had made the local headlines. Wedding assault leaves guest hospitalized, girlfriend of groom's father in custody. They didn't use our names, but anyone who knew me could fill in the blanks. I tried to stay off social media, but my best friend Bella was doing the exact opposite for good reason. She had never liked Carla, and now she was determined to help me find out who this woman really was. One evening, Bella showed up at my apartment with a laptop and a file folder that looked like it belonged in a courtroom. "Okay," she said, spreading the papers across my coffee table. "You need to see this." I leaned forward, heart pounding. "What is it?" "Carla Blake," Bella began. "Real name Carla Hensley. She has a criminal record, multiple counts of fraud, theft, assault, and even a restraining order filed by a man she lived with in Florida 3 years ago." My stomach turned. "And that's not all," Bella continued. "Look at this." She pulled up a series of bank statements showing joint accounts in both Carla and Robert's names. "There are transfers, Vanessa. Thousands of dollars. Some to offshore accounts, some to prepaid cards." I stared at the screen in disbelief. He was part of this? "I think he knew," Bella said gently. "Maybe not all of it. But he wasn't just some clueless victim." I sank back into the couch, my pulse roaring in my ears. How could he betray us like this? After everything Ava and I had been through, he chose her. I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was right in front of me. Later that week, I drove to Ava's house. She met me in the kitchen, where unopened wedding gifts sat like ghosts in the corner. "Vanessa?" she asked, concerned. "What is it?" I sat her down and showed her everything. Her hands trembled as she flipped through the printouts. This can't be real." "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I didn't want it to be either." Tears streamed down her face. "He helped her steal. He defended her after she hit you. I don't even know him anymore." I didn't either. But I knew one thing now. We weren't going to let him ruin anything else. "We need to protect ourselves," I said quietly. Ava nodded through her tears. "I'm with you. Always." And just like that, we weren't just sisters anymore. We were allies in a war we hadn't asked for, but were finally ready to fight. It didn't take long before things moved from whispers to legal paperwork. Carla had been denied bail, and her charges were stacking up like bricks: assault, public disturbance, intent to defraud, theft, and conspiracy. And with Bella's evidence, every transfer, every joint account, every fraudulent detail, Robert's name was now officially part of the investigation. I didn't want to see my father behind bars. But I also couldn't protect someone who helped cover up crimes, enabled a violent woman, and stood silent while she attacked his own daughter. The day of the hearing came quickly. Courtroom 4B was packed. A few reporters hovered outside. Ava sat beside me in the gallery, holding my hand tightly. Jason was on her other side, calm and watchful. Josh, my boyfriend, was in the front row behind the witness box, offering silent strength with his presence. Carla sat across the room in a tan jumpsuit, her once polished hair now limp and tied back. She looked smaller than I remembered, but when her eyes met mine, the same arrogance flickered behind them. The judge called my name. I stood, walked to the front, and gave my victim impact statement. "My name is Vanessa Carter," I said clearly. "I was physically assaulted by Carla Blake at my sister's wedding. She didn't just hit me. She humiliated me. She tried to shatter a family event that should have been filled with joy and love." I paused, the courtroom silent. But more than that, Carla used my father emotionally and financially. She manipulated him, and together they took money, lied, and left damage that will take years to undo. I stand here not as a victim, but as someone who refuses to let that damage continue. The judge nodded solemnly. When the evidence was presented, bank statements, video recordings, witness reports, there was no room for doubt. The verdict? Guilty on all counts. The sentence? 4 years in state prison, without the possibility of early parole, due to her criminal record and the public nature of the assault. Robert sat pale and motionless. Though he wasn't on trial that day, the judge announced that his actions were under separate financial investigation, and he was expected to face federal charges for knowingly assisting in wire fraud.
He didn't look at me.
He didn't look at Ava. And as Carla was let out in handcuffs, screaming about how she'd come back for everything, I felt nothing. No fear. No guilt.
Just peace.
The peace of knowing she couldn't hurt us again. In the weeks that followed the trial, life didn't go back to normal because normal no longer existed. But slowly, something better began to take its place. Ava and I weren't just sisters now. We were survivors. We were rebuilding, piece by piece, and refusing to let our family's darkness define who we were. I started seeing Dr. Reed, a therapist recommended by Bella. He was gentle, insightful, and unafraid to ask the hard questions. During our second session, I confessed the one thing that kept me up at night. Is it wrong that I don't feel sorry for my father? Dr. Reed shook his head. Not at all. You're not obligated to feel anything but what's real. What you experienced was betrayal. What you're doing now is protecting your peace. And for the first time, I believed that. Meanwhile, something unexpected happened at work. My boss, someone who had watched me juggle chaos with unshakable professionalism, called me into her office. "Vanessa," she said with a smile, "we've been watching your leadership, your ideas, your resilience. We're promoting you to senior marketing director." I stared at her, stunned. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious. You earned this." Later that night, I called Josh, my ever-patient boyfriend. "You're talking to a senior director now," I teased. His whoop of joy on the other end made me laugh for the first time in weeks. "That's my girl," he said proudly. I knew they'd see what I already knew. And then, like a cherry on top of a hard-won chapter, Ava and Jason made a beautiful decision. They planned to renew their vows, this time on their own terms. Just a few close friends and family in their backyard. No drama. No Carla. No Robert. I stood beside Ava again, but not as her maid of honor this time, just as her sister, her safe place. Jason kissed her gently. They laughed as they fumbled with the rings, and I felt something loosen inside me. The ache, the tightness, the wounds, they weren't gone, but they weren't bleeding anymore. After the ceremony, as we sat under fairy lights eating chocolate cake on paper plates, Ava leaned over and whispered, "We did it." I nodded. We had survived the unthinkable, and now we were healing. 1 month later, we gathered at my favorite little restaurant, just me, Ava, Jason, Bella, and Josh. It wasn't fancy, just familiar.
Cozy.
Safe. We weren't celebrating a holiday or an anniversary. We were celebrating survival. Ava raised her glass with a smile that finally reached her eyes. "To new beginnings," she toasted. "To family," Jason added. "The one we choose," I said, clinking glasses with all of them. As we laughed and shared memories, some painful, some funny, I found myself watching their faces. The ones who stood by me, believed me, held me when I was too tired to stand on my own.
They were my real family.
Not the one I was born into, the one I built. So much had changed since that day at the wedding. Carla was in prison, her crimes no longer hidden behind lip gloss and fake smiles. Robert was under investigation and had gone completely silent. I hadn't heard a word from him since the courtroom. And honestly, that silence was the greatest gift he'd ever given me. I no longer felt the need to fix what I didn't break. Instead, I poured my energy into things that healed, work that fulfilled me, people who uplifted me, and moments that reminded me what peace actually feels like. Sure, the scars are still there, emotional and physical, but they no longer define me.
They remind me
That I made it out, that I found strength I didn't know I had, that I said no to pain and yes to self-worth. And maybe, just maybe, that's what this whole mess was for, not to break me, but to rebuild me. So now, as I sit here writing this story, I want to ask you something. If you were in my shoes, would you have given your father another chance? Or would you have drawn the same line I did? Because I know I'm not alone. Many of you reading this have dealt with toxic family members, manipulative relationships, and moments where you had to choose yourself over someone you once loved. So tell me, what did you choose? If my story meant something to you, if it helped you feel a little less alone, please let me know. Share your story. Speak your truth. And remember, you're not weak for walking away. You're powerful for protecting your peace. If this story resonated with you, please take a moment to like the video, leave a comment sharing your thoughts or personal experiences, and subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories about strength, healing, and standing up for yourself. Your support helps this channel grow and allows us to keep bringing you meaningful, emotional content every week. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.